If you're a military spouse and a mama preparing for a move, I have to tell you about one of my favorite pre-PCS traditions. We started it when we were leaving Albuquerque, and now I can't PCS without continuing the tradition. While to some people it might feel like just one more thing to do, it's honestly quite therapeutic for my very nostalgic self, and my kids appreciate it so much. Hey friend, I'm Erin, military spouse and teacher turned photographer. I'm usually here on this channel teaching MILSPOUSE photographers to build businesses that thrive despite frequent moves, but today is different. Today we aren't talking business, but instead I'm sharing with you how I create memory books for my kiddos every time we PCS. Now, in case you didn't know, I love pictures. I always have. My high school scrapbook is 4 volumes thick. My college dorm room had hundreds of pictures on the wall. And we won't even talk about how many thousands of images I have on my iPhone camera roll. If you've seen Inside Out 2, you'll know what I mean when I say that nostalgia is frequently running the show in my headquarters. So because I love pictures so much and I love looking back on memories from previous seasons of life, I had the idea to create these memory books for my kids when we were leaving Albuquerque. It was the first move that they were old enough to remember and kind of feel sad about some of the people and places that we were leaving behind. So I wanted to create a place for them to be able to look back on some of their favorite memories from our time there and just have a place to go when they felt sad and wanted to remember some of these times. So now that I've made these books a couple of times, I want to share the process with you so that if you want to make them, you can do that as well. So when I'm making the books, it really comes down to about a 4-step process. The first thing I do is think about all of the places that we're going to miss, thinking about our house, our church, our school, any favorite parks, different places around the neighborhood, restaurants, things like that. And then after I've got those places, I think about the different activities my kids have been involved in. So soccer, gymnastics, baseball, dance, things like that. And then the last thing is any other big events or memories that we'll definitely want to remember. As an example, when we were in Virginia, we got selected in the lottery to attend the White House Easter egg roll. So that's definitely going to be a page in the memory book. So once I have all of these different categories, I make a folder on my desktop for each of them, and that's going to help me organize the pictures that I pick for each of them. Now, step 2, once I have all those folders, this is when the fun begins. I get to actually go through all of the pictures. So I start with the ones from my big camera on my computer, and usually there's a handful of those for each of the places, but the majority of the pictures that I use are going to come from my iPhone. So I take care of the ones on my computer first, but then I start scrolling through my phone, and I'm just airdropping the pictures from my phone onto the computer and then dragging them into the appropriate folders. So when I'm done going through the few years of time that we lived in that place, I have a bunch of folders on my desktop with a handful of pictures in each. Now, I say a handful. After I drag them all in and I look at them, I will cull through them one more time because I tend to pick way too many pictures. And honestly, I still end up with a whole lot, but that might just be a me problem. The best case scenario, I have a few different pictures for each of the categories that I can then do the next step and actually make the book. Since I've always done our family yearbooks in Shutterfly, that's who I decided to use for the memory books as well. One really helpful tip that I've learned is that it's way better and way more manageable to just import one folder of pictures at a time instead of importing all of them and then having all of these to sort through. Again, I probably have way more pictures than a lot of people might, but when I do it just one folder at a time, I have a much more manageable number of images that I can easily sort through and put on the pages. Now, typically, I would do this one at a time and I would start to make the book, but for this round of book, I actually used Shutterfly's free service where they will actually do a draft of your book for you. So I was a little bit leery about this because I tend to be a perfectionist and I know how I want things, but I figured what was the worst that could happen? It could either go terribly and then I would end up making the book from scratch anyways, or maybe it would be great and I would save myself a little bit of time. And honestly, I was really impressed. It was for someone with a trained eye, I could tell that there was some thought that went into where the pictures were placed on the pages. Now, was it perfect? Of course not. I made a few tweaks, and I added in some text on the pages that only I could have put in. But overall, it saved me so much time to have them do the first draft for me. I had the draft back within 2 days. Again, it was free for them to do this. And so if you're running short on time or this isn't your thing to want to design a book, I highly recommend this. I don't have an affiliate link. They're not paying me to say this. I just found it to be super useful, and I was really impressed with the process. So once you either have them make the book or you put your images as you go, the final step is to wait if you have time. I like to wait for their unlimited free pages sale, which they run a couple of times a year. These books can get quite pricey if you're like me and have way too many pictures. Seriously, I have hit the page limit before on our family yearbooks, not on the memory books, thankfully, but on our yearbooks I have. And this can be a way to save a substantial amount of money if you wait until the unlimited free pages sale. So if they have it, again, they run that a few times a year. That will be a great way to save a little bit of money as you print them. Now, as far as ordering them goes, I find that it's helpful to do it in the last couple of weeks before you move so that you can fill the book with those final memories, but also still get the books in time to actually leave. I will never forget leaving Albuquerque. My kids were 3 and 5 at the time, and it was our very last night in the house. They were having a sibling air mattress sleepover in one of their bedrooms, and I was peeking in on the monitor, and I just heard them flipping through their pages and telling stories about the different people and places that were in there. And it just warmed my heart, honestly. I told you I'm nostalgic, but I think it's really important to have the books before you go. My kids end up looking through them on the car ride as we move from one place to the next, and it just really helps in those first couple of weeks as we get to a new place and are dealing with all the big feelings that come with the move. So if you can order them with a little bit of time to spare, I find that that's a really great way to do it. Now, speaking of moving, if you're watching this live, my family is a week and a half away from our next move. So I'm going to be taking a short break from YouTube while we move and get settled, but I will be back with more content to help MILSPOUSE photographers in a few weeks. If you want to follow along on the adventure of our move, you can follow me over on Instagram at Erin Thompson Photography, or if you're a MILSPOUSE, join the Photographers Changing Stations Facebook group, and I'm sure I'll be sharing some things in there as well. Thanks for watching, friend. If you have any questions about making the memory books, feel free to drop those in the comments below, and I will see you next time.